Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and I'm Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. And don't forget my Ravelry group, Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to get in touch, take part in knit-alongs and get help with patterns and stuff like that. So hi, welcome to my knitting podcast, aka my knitting talk show, where I sit and talk about knitting for about an hour every so often. Could be weekly, could be monthly, it depends. But here I am, I found a gap in my schedule where I have the living room to myself and can record a short but sweet podcast episode. So here I just sit and talk about my knitting, be it my designs or just my casual knitting, because it's both my hobby and my livelihood. Kind of wild, but here we are. And yeah, to returning viewers, hi, welcome back. And to new viewers, I hope you will enjoy it, whatever this is. On the program today is my knit-alongs, my new patterns, my works in progress and general life stuff in that order. So there. My knit-alongs are, well, singular knit-along is the year-long Skeindeer Knits Garment Cal of 2021, where you can take part by knitting any of my garment patterns, casting on and binding off in the year 2021, and you can enter with as many as you want to make. So there. I talk about this in every episode. I will link to specific relevant Ravelry threads below. You can also take part on Instagram. Use the hashtag Skeindeer Knits Garment Cal 2021. So there, that's all I have to say about that. So just any designs of mine that are garments are eligible. So before I get into what I have just published in terms of new designs, I do want to talk about what I am wearing because it's likely to come off sooner than later because I do tend to run hot on this podcast, and that is the Nordbakken cardigan. This is one of my designs. It is certainly eligible in the Skeindeer Knits Garment Cal, but I was just wearing it and that's what I was wearing when I found that I have time and space to record an episode. So that was lucky because sometimes I don't actually plan for knitwear worn on the podcast. So now I get to show you something I just wear casually every day. And I do want to give a massive shout out to Ravelry wool, which I have a habit of mispronouncing in every episode, but that's just tradition now, right? I do love this yarn. It is made by Christine, who I happen to know, and she's really cool. And this is one of the designs that I have made with her yarn. It's in the Ravelry Sport weight. It's made in German Bavarian merino, non-superwash, very steek friendly. I found I did cut this cardigan right open. It's a very good sort of practice for steeking in color work. This one, I think it's got a really nice fit. I love wearing this yarn. So yeah, well, the shout out, I was giving this yarn a big shout out because look at how it's worn. Okay, we do the underarm, the undersleeve test. If you can get the focus right, that'll be a massive improvement. You guys know how pills tend to form under here, right? Especially with merino. I'm just like showing off my armpits. This is interesting. That's what you come here for, right? No pills on merino. I've never come across anything like it. I wear this cardigan a lot. It's one of my designs that I actually have is in regular rotation in my wardrobe because I just love it. I love that I don't wear it out. I love how hardy it feels, but it's still very soft, next to skin friendly. It's quite minimalist. It's got my favorite color. Everything about this is great. So yeah, just big shout out. I really like it. This yarn is honestly a good substitute for pretty much all of my patterns that I recommend. Yarns like Finul, which I do tend to do. Finul and Ask and Tove, Navia Duo, all those yarns. Yeah, it's really good. It's a lot harder when you're knitting with it as well. You can tell like you're making a substantial fabric. I do think it is maybe a bit on the thicker side than those other yarns I just mentioned. So that is part of it. Obviously, a denser gauge will give you a sturdier, less spelly garment, but there is something to this wool as well that just, it stands the test of time, for sure. I published this at the end of 2019, so I think that goes to show. Anywho, what else do we have to talk about? Yes, I have new designs. Yeah, plural. It's actually a year ago, just over a year ago, since I started making this design, and I don't even know where to begin. Oh god, I was gonna prepare this and now I'm just gonna, okay, improvised. I had something I was gonna say, you know, big and whatever, but I'm from Trondheim. In case you didn't know, I am from Norway, but I'm specifically from Trondheim. And I may not have been very intentional with a lot of the things I do. Sometimes I just have an idea and I run with it, and I think that's great. That's how inspiration and creativity works. But I've always been intentionally Trøndersk in what I do. I'm not just trying to be generically Scandinavian or generically Norwegian in the aesthetic of my knitting. In my work, it's really important to me that my work speaks true to where I am from. I lived the first, 21 years of my life in Trøndelag. I have been to Sarbu more times than I can count. Part of my family hails from there. It's got a very rich knitting tradition, but not just from Sarbu. Sarbu tends to get most of the attention in Trøndersk knitting, but so Trøndersk is the, I believe, adjective for something from Trøndelag, and a person from Trøndelag is called a trønder. So now you know that. That's kind of my thing. And we also have a really cool dialect also called Trøndersk, and it's cute. Don't come for me. So, I wish you guys knew all the cultural jokes, stereotypes around my dialect. It's kind of corny, but I love it anyway. I usually joke that we are what Middlesbrough dialect is to the UK, is what we are to Norway. I love that. Anyway, it's not just Sarbu that has a great knitting tradition from Trøndelag. Also, my hometown Trondheim has that. One of those things is the great fisherman sweater tradition. This is something you're going to find all over Norway, dare I say all over coastal Europe. People made knitted jumpers for those people who went at sea and needed to stay warm and keep the water off them, which wool does a pretty great job of doing. You probably already know about Aran jumpers from Ireland or the Dutch Gansies from the Netherlands. There's a lot of good knitting traditions for fisherman's jumpers. I've even talked about the Islander pattern, which I based off of the Islander sweater, which is probably the most well-known Norwegian fisherman jumper. And then there's also the so-called pipitrøya from Sweden. There's a lot of them, but I'm going to talk about Trondheim today. There aren't a lot of fisherman's jumpers that have survived, that have been preserved from, say the 1800s, which is sort of the peak era. But they have preserved 3 of them, and they have been, photographed. You can find them in some of my museum books. And there was one there that really caught my eye. And I thought, we need to refresh this one. I want to make a design heavily inspired by this, playing homage to my hometown, to Trondheim, to Ravnkloa, which yes does translate to Ravenclaw, is the dock in my hometown's kind of, it's where all the boats came in and the fisherman trade and all that stuff. And you can find all these old photos from there with these fishermen meeting up and the knitted jumpers that they wear. And I just really wanted to, honor that in this design. So it's, most of what I do anyway is historically inspired, or at the very least inspired by the sort of historically inspired knitting boom in the mid-century of last century, but which is arguably more vintage. But this is probably one of the most literally historically inspired works that I have done. I can tell my heart is beating. This is crazy. But yeah, I guess without further ado, I'm going to show you the patterns. So how is this pattern's plural? The original item is a jumper, pullover. But I like cardigans, but also some people like pullovers. So I did both. Thanks to a friend of mine who's a frequent task knitter, and this time thankfully showed up to be a sample knitter for a change and helped me finish up this stuff in time, because with a whole PhD and everything, I've had a lot on my mind, and I am just in love with these pieces. So I'm going to start off showing you the cardigan that I've made. So here it is. I've named this pattern Haldogard because that is the name of the farm in Bynase where this item was knitted. And what's quite amazing with this is it was knitted on Biennase, which is sort of, it's still in Trondheim, but it's outside the city on the other side of the hill where a lot of just farms and fields and stuff are. And it was knitted for, you know, a fisherman, which would be maybe working in Damkrua in Trondheim. And this man eventually migrated to the United States and brought this jumper with him. Well, not this jumper, I made this, but you know what I mean. So yeah, this is my kind of interpretation. It's a cardigan version. Yeah. What I also like about it is that it looks a lot like the historical Fana jumper from Norway, which has so many varieties, but it's really been stylized into this very specific style that has these sort of Norwegian stars and stripes that are different, but not too dissimilar from these. And I found that so interesting because Fana is outside of Bergen, which is a different city in Norway altogether, and you can see these styles sort of traveling across the fjord coastline like that, and I love that. It's really quite a time traveler piece. So there, this is probably easy to look at. I will be talking about the yarn a bit later because that's very much important to this. Do remind me. In case someone's interested in these buttons, I just got these from my stash, but I did happen to find that SKD yarns do have them. And if you can't find them, just Google Norwegian pewters Salbu buttons and you should be able to find them. They are not that rare, but I realize it's a bit more of a design feature on here just simply because of the matching stars, which we call roses in Norway because I guess we've never seen a rose before. I don't know. Yeah, I just want to hold this up. So one special feature, I guess, of this garment was something that I don't know how I even thought about, because it's very common for these Trondheim fishermen sweaters to have a star cuff. So the stars from the top here will repeat around the cuff. But I, for some reason, decided to do this on a fold-over cuff, which I have never done before, and I really liked it. There were so many times throughout the process of knitting this that I was questioning myself. I was like, And then when I blocked it and I wore it, I'm like, oh, I love how cute this is. So this is the cuff. That's basically how it looks. So you can see, you can, you know, do this for whatever reason, just to prove to you that is folded over. So there's a tiny little bit of ribbon here just to kind of keep it in place. I did also use the steam feature on the iron just to keep it in this shape. But if you find that it goes out of shape, you can put a bit of stitches through, but I have not found that to be necessary at all. This fold is happening on its own now. It did not come undone when I was doing the photo shoot, moving around, carrying things, just to have an excuse to show off these cuffs, you know. So that's that. What else is there to say? I mean, I just find it that's a really good fit. What's kind of funny, I guess, is that I started making this a year ago, and I guess I hadn't measured myself for a while, and I'd incorporated a lot of positive ease, but wearing it now, it does not have that much positive ease on me, and that's fine. So I've added a small size to it that obviously would not incorporate any positive ease. So I kind of left it to you if you want to choose something with a lot of ease or no ease. I think it should work either way, but you do want to be aware of the upper arm circumference when you do that, because obviously we choose sizes based on the bust. But the only other thing I would pay attention to here is the upper arm, which should be quite generous, but just in case. It does actually have waist shaping, just because there's just a lot to go by with the extra ease. So you can see there's a little bit of shaping here, which is why the chart is just a bit offset. I kind of just improvised that. It's really, nothing to write home about. I just keep like holding it up. So construction, you always know I do something weird with construction. I didn't really do that here. I thought about repeating the Otra method, the Islander method, but as much as that was fun to experiment with, I figured, you can just graft the shoulders in the end. So instead, we're doing it top down. But instead of having you cast on, from shoulder to shoulder and picking up on the front, blah, 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 you're just casting on the full stitch count in the round, knitting down, and at whatever point you feel like it, and it's easier to knit with, you can just graft together the shoulders, and you are putting in markers there, so it's easy to know when to stop grafting, because you want to your head through. So that should be very comfortable to work with and to do. There are steeks. This one has 4. There's just one for each armhole. There's obviously the cardigan opening, and there's the one for the neckline. So you can see here on the inside, we got like a tiniest little steek here. It's not really showing. It's not taking up any space. I just tacked it down here, which is barely necessary anyway, but you know, I gotta do good finishing for Mom Designs, I guess. So yeah, really pleased with the fit. I clearly need to reblock the rib here because it's stretched out a bit when I was blocking it, okay? So yeah, I don't really know what else to say. So let me show you the pullover. Here she is. Slightly different colors, and I've just been dreaming about this color palette for a while. I don't know, sometimes you see people in London wearing Norwegian colorwork cardigans. I don't know if they are Norwegians or if they just bought it in Norway. I really have no clue, but a lot of them are more summery in their color scheme than the sort of more gloomier colors that I like. And I was very inspired by that, and really not even without thinking about it, I ended up gravitating towards those colors and got this sort of light blue, just feel good color. So this is basically identical to the cardigan. There's obviously a slightly difference in beginning of round and things like that. You got 1 steek less here because there's no cardigan opening, so it's just a tiny one for the neck opening. You can see that again, there's a tiny little steek tacked down here. It does look a bit weird when you're doing it. You see the necklines like zip together, but it just opens up and you get this like nice little crew neck. Again, sleeves are the same. And you see the cuff here. This one was blocked differently, so that's kind of why it looks different. You can do a lot with blocking, especially with this type of yarn, which I guess it's time to talk about. I got yarn from Gull. Gull is a natural hand dyer team in Denmark that, I've been talking for eons about, you know, me coming over there and seeing out the whole thing, and I'm just very excited about that, especially as this heckin' pandemic is coming to an end. I am, you know, wanting to go all the places, and they were so generous and offered yarn for this pattern. This is hand dyed in natural dyes. Like, look at these colors. Look at these colors. Their colors are amazing. I mean, I've talked about them a lot on this podcast before. I just love them. I mean, this burgundy right here, this sort of more purple side of burgundy, it's more plum, is, you know, one of my favorites. I am lost for words. This base is their New Zealand lamb's wool, and it's just soft, it's woolly. At this gauge, it's a 24 stitch gauge, it's sort of my usual, same as this. This yarn is slightly finer, but you still get like a fully, you know, non-transparent fabric here. But it's so light. I think both of these weigh just under 400 grams each. It's got a full-on color work sweater here with quite a bit of ease, under 400 grams. Same with this cardigan. I love that. Like, I'm holding less than 800 grams here for 2 garments. I love it. I love it so much. Oh, so yeah, I am lost for words. I should have prepared something, but anywho. So how are we gonna do this? 2 patterns. What do? Which one do you choose? I don't know. When I have I've got a couple of designers that I'm just like, I will buy anything they do. And sometimes I get a bit like, oh, they're gonna do a sweater and a cardigan that's the same. Oh, I don't know, buy both. So I tried to look at it from that point of view, and I figured what we're gonna do. Okay, I'm making a decision now. This is final. Instead of the usual limited time offer that I will have, I'm actually just gonna give one of them away for free if you buy the other. So whichever one you buy, the other one's free. You gotta put them in the cart on Ravelry at the same time and check out. I'm either gonna put a code here, and if there's no code here, it's automatic. Just look here. This is so unplanned. Why am I like this? Oh, I know I'm like this. But yeah, so we're gonna do that, and that's just gonna be for a couple of days, you know, while the pattern's new and you guys are helping me out and all the usual shebang. But I'm running hot. I'm blushing. But yeah, oh yeah, polka dots. That's gonna look great and flickering on camera, as it always does. So yeah, I think that's just what I'm gonna do. So you don't have to make the choice between one or the other. For now. At some point you may want to choose which one you want to cast on, but I'm not going to make it hard on you in the beginning. I feel like that's what we're going to do here, okay? So thank you so much as ever to everyone who are always so enthusiastic when I have a new pattern. I know you guys could buy whenever, but you choose to do it when it's new, which is what brings it out there, you know, on the trending pages and all that stuff for other people. As of the time of recording this, I don't know if Gull have planned for kits or anything like that, but you can get their yarns from their website. I'm pretty sure they ship internationally, and their yarn is affordable for hand-dyed yarn. I'm like, God, you could charge more, but also thank you. They're great. I have only good things to say. This won't be the last time you'll find me knitting with their yarn, designing with their yarn. Just having these in my wardrobe, I'm just like, why am I like this? It's just knitting. But I don't know, it's just really nice to have had this journey that took a year come to an end. Just to like paint you a picture, when I was first coming up with this idea, obviously I immediately started writing down the pattern and I started grading it and I started casting it on just like that. I was sat in my room on a beanbag because everything was too just hot to sit on. We had this heat wave and I was living in a flat share. I mean, I was still living here, but you know, I was living with different people and it just wasn't really, it wasn't great. The two of them would be down here and they'd be out there and they would kind of just like take over a bit, and it was just incompatible people. Nobody were bad, but just not working out, and I felt very ostracized. I just remember sitting there, I'd pull my blinds down to try to cool things down. I was like knitting with a fan on, headphones on, just trying to shut out the world, and it's like amazing to come out on the other side having all this space that I can actually enjoy. I don't feel like I need to hide away from anyone. My flatmate now is great and we have a great time together. Like today we've been walking all over my neighborhood, our neighborhood, and checking out the markets that have come back on since things have opened up here. It's like these two items just kind of been on a journey with me. Is that cheesy to say? It's a bit cheesy. We're gonna do it. A bit cheesy. I also want to talk about the photo shoot because I had a lot of fun photographing them on our patio, where I've been going ham on the plant thing. We have a local flower market which has also opened up again, and I've just gone for it. I've got plants everywhere, and like I have this shrub there that's like blooming now. It's got flowers. We've got this bamboo wall to hide the ugly pipes. I've got a tree. I bought a tree. I got my neighbors coming out and helping me early in the morning to carry this freaking tree from the market before anyone else grabbed it. We got climbers. I got this amazing Australian mint bush. I'm just like, I love it. So I used that as props for this photo shoot. Why would I bother taking photos anywhere else now? I just do here. Less people gawking at me. That's nice. I mean, my neighbors did have a few questions. We have like a very shared patio situation here. And oh my god, the cat got lost recently. There's a broken door and something, and the cat escaped, and she's usually just trapped on this balcony. This is her world as far as she's concerned. And she escaped for a minute, and my neighbor, her owner, was crying. It was awful. And then we found her very quickly again, and yeah, she's just very pleased with herself. So yeah, she's a good cat. I like her. But anyway, you didn't come here to hear about cats. I mean, maybe you did. I've been watching Kitten Lady a lot. If you haven't checked out Kitten Lady on YouTube, what are you doing? Why are you watching this? You could be watching kittens. I love Kitten Lady, not just because it's videos full of kittens, but it's like kitten advocacy, you know? She's a kitten rescuer. Just check it out. I've been watching her videos on and off for a year now, at least. So good. Anyway, more knitting. I've been working on the Widow's Kiss pattern by Thea Colman. I talked about this last year, where I have done 2 sleeves. It's nothing to write home about here. They are still not joined with the body. They're just sleeves being sleeves, hanging out here, doing what sleeves do. The body I have made slight more progress on. I totally have. This is more progress than last time. Look at that. Cables gonna cable. I love this pattern. I'm having a lot of fun with it and it's beautiful. Most of this pattern is actually just 2x2 rib, which you're probably tired of me saying that I'm not much into rib, but actually on this pattern the rib rounds feel more like rest rounds. So it's only when I'm on these sections where they're like, I think 5 rounds of cabling and the rest of it is all 2x2 rib. It's pretty straightforward. I've been putting it down for a couple of days because I had a couple of other things to knit on. Yeah, spoiler, I've been designing another vest that's probably gonna come out late summer at this rate. I could just be naughty and publish it now, but I have actually recruited test knitters for it and I do think it's fair to give them a little bit of time. So giving them actually 3 months is a bit much, but that's what I like to do. If you're interested in test knitting, I got a link on my Instagram, but I do want to say I tend to prioritize people who have a kind of knitting Instagram. It doesn't mean you have to have any number of followers, but it just means that I can scroll through your Instagram and get a sense of what kind of knit you are, what kind of photos you do, and if that's what I am looking for. Because the truth is, the main reason I get test knitters is for you guys. Because if someone's made a design, there's a limit to how many samples they can do, as evident with me getting help from a friend, a sample knitter. You may want to see it in more different colors, different yarns, different bodies, and kind of know how this plays out. You know, you may not want to be the first person to knit an item, and I think it's great to be able to show, hey, lots of people already have, and this is what it can look like, which is often why I tend to give my test knitters a bit of free rein. If there's something they would have modified if they had bought this pattern, well, I tend to let them do it. We tend to discuss it a bit, but yeah. So that's mainly why I choose test knitters. So that's also why it's important that you have a bit of a knitting social media, but it doesn't have, it's not about your following or anything like that. I just want to get an idea. So those are the people I'm looking for. If you are interested, I tend to just use that as a place to look for people. Please don't sign up if you just want a free pattern. That's not what test knitting is about. I do have to put that out there. Some people do that and you can tell pretty quickly. So yeah, gosh, I'm terrified of announcing this now because it's like putting myself out there. I do appreciate test knitters' feedback as well, but I also do appreciate that test knitters are just knitters. They're not professional tech editors, so that's why I do pay tech editor for checking my numbers and not everything is like professional and having, you know, a second pair of eyes on it. I don't know if you guys are interested in that. We can talk about tech editing and test knitting sometime. I've always thought about dedicating a video for that sort of thing. Test knitting, tech editing and sample knitting, because a lot of people don't know the difference. I can summarize it now if you want, but we can do a proper video also because there's a lot more to say. But the difference is a tech editor is a professional job. You will have that as like your self-imposed title, where you have a business where you offer tech editing as a service. You know, you have to tax on that sort of thing because you're charging for it. It's a proper thing, and it usually is done by people who have professional experience in, many of them have a background in mathematics and engineering, sort of that corner of science. Some have a background in copy editing, but it does tend to be more of a numerical job. Test knitting, however, is just getting any ordinary knitter to try out your pattern. It's sort of like a pilot test. It's not a professional service. It doesn't tend to be paid, although some people do that. Some tend to offer yarn if it's a very specific yarn requirement, but I tend not to because I'm just happy to people to choose the yarn that they think is suitable, because that's how it's going to work out in the real world, and that's what I'm trying to kind of get a sense of before I'm actually charging for it. So it's doing a favor, and you get to be part of the process. You get an early release, you get a little bit of more hands-on help from the designer, and you get to influence the pattern, how it's turning out, saying something about the fit if that's, you know, stuff like that. And you tend to get compensated with an extra pattern, you know, if you don't well. So that's generally what that's about. Whereas if you're a sample knitter, it's basically charging for having made the item to give away. So most of the time when someone's sample knitting, the designer will be paying for both the yarn, the postage, and the time spent. Whether that's something you offer professionally as a business, like a tech editor does, can't talk, or if it's a one-off thing, that tends to differ. But it's also a professional service in the sense that you really do have to do exactly what the designer wants you to do, down to the gauge, down to everything, because it's not your item, it's an item for the designer or for a yarn shop or for a magazine, what have you. So that's the difference, summarized. But like I said, we could do a dedicated video on this. I got lots to say. I've lost my ability to talk. Now I'm calling attention to it. Why am I doing that? Anyway, I have other things that I am knitting on as well. And that is actually a test knit. That's very on topic. I didn't realize that. I don't tend to offer myself up as a test knitter because I am unreliable. I wouldn't have chosen me as a test knitter if I was a designer. I am a designer. I wouldn't have chosen me. I do tell the designers when either when they ask me to test knit or if I say, hey, I can, I say, you know, I'm a designer, I'm unreliable because I have so many things I need to get done. So I do tend to be very honest with designers about my limitations, and we just kind of agree that, you know, we know each other, and I you know, can't make any promises because I got my own designs, but it's also a really nice way for me to show what some of my favorite designers do. It's a bit of a collegial, you know, help. I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know that I'm knitting this. I have been knitting a lot of Thea Haldogard, aka Strickkezilla's designs for my nephew because he's a cutie, but he's also a huge cutie because he's growing a lot. He's like a meter shorter than me now. He's like 7 months old. I have still not met him, although we do talk on a webcam and he sees me. He knows I exist. And well, Auntie's gonna be making these little trousers for him. So he already got the Harlequin trousers by Strikkezilla, which he wears a lot, but they are getting a bit small for him. He is older than 6 months after all. And even though I made sure that most of the things I made him were gonna be big, because a lot of people like to make newborn sizes and they're like too small like that. After a couple of weeks, you know, you can't use them for very long. So I was already thinking ahead. It's only just now that they were becoming too small. So he needs a pair of trousers. I could be making the Harlequin trousers again because they are great. I really like them. But when Tina posted this and said she needed some test knitters, I was like, well. And I have started, so maybe I am reliable. Blah, 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 blah. I made this in finer. It is made for more sort of on the DK side of yarn. Don't ask me what happened with the light right now. But yeah, I went with fingering to sport weight finer, which is great because I finally get to use up these black scrap leftovers from like 2015. This is back when we said 2000 and not 20, and yeah, it's 2015. I remember going to Oslo to buy my very first finer because I'd heard everyone talk about it so much. This is my first finer, some leftovers, and I've used up 2 of the leftovers now. I found that the 3rd one isn't finer at all, so I don't know what that is. But now I get to join in one of my newer balls of finer, and this is actually some leftover balls from the academic vests because I bought way more than I needed to buy for that vest. Turns out it doesn't require that much yarn, despite the huge amount of rib. So I'm using up that, and it's a very unusual for me color combination. I've never done like beige and black before, I don't think, but my flatmate got to see the colors I had selected and those were the 2 she picked up, and I was indifferent. So I'm like, okay, we're doing it. This is what's happening. This floral pattern. I really like it. I would have worn this. Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah. There's some short rows happening at the upper bum area. I love how she incorporates the color work into the short rows like that. I think that's so neat. So now I'm just gonna knit down to the legs, and then we're gonna split off so he can have both of his legs into separate. It's a double folded hem. I have of course managed to knit down the edge so that I don't know where I'm gonna sneak in the elastic, even though the pattern told me to leave a hole for the elastic. I'm like, yeah, we're fine. I'm sure I could attach it to a big yarn needle and like shove it in there somehow. It will be fine. It better be fine. So otherwise these trousers are gonna fall off him because he's really eager to be moving around now. I just got a snap from him today, you know, and he's like laying on his belly doing like this because he wants to crawl, but he's not quite figured it out yet, and it's very cute. He's cute. I don't like babies, but I like him. He's pretty cool. I mean, no babies have hurt me. I'm just saying, like, it's different. I'm not usually someone to be enthusiastic about babies, but just my nephew, what can I say? So where are we in terms of life? I feel like I've accidentally covered all of that stuff throughout. So there's maybe not that much to add in the end. London is opening up on May 17th. Pretty much everything is semi back to normal. The vaccination's going really well, and rates are incredibly low. Did not think we'd get here this quickly. I'm amazed. I'm hoping it will be my turn soon so I can go home. I probably can. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I may have. Apologies for repeating myself. I basically kind of sort of have the opportunity to go home whenever I feel like it. I am a student abroad, technically still, a tad bit more. And so because my address is registered in Norway, I really can't be kept away from Norway as a student abroad, but also, and my travels as a student abroad is deemed necessary, so I can prove that it's a good enough reason to go on flights and stuff. I also have a settled status here in the UK, so also I have the right to come back. But even though all those things, I still haven't chosen to go home. Not because I'm like such a goody two-shoes, but because I just don't think that's something I should be doing. I don't think that was, you know, like that's basically it. I just don't want to go home until I can be sure I'm not putting anyone, including myself, at risk. So, plan is, if it all goes to plan, if the rules don't change, and my mum is going to be away, so I'm not putting her at risk, I can go home, quarantine in her flat. After that, I can go see my nephew who is in the same neighborhood. I can walk about. I can go to my hometown. I can go and check out that new yarn shop. Can meet some of the few friends that I have left in that town that haven't moved since. Yeah, that's my kind of hope. It's only hope at this point, but I like to think about what is coming next. Provided that rates are low here, the rates are low there, that my mom is not going to be in the way, so I'm not going to give her COVID somehow. I'm like already thinking about what yarn I would buy when I go home. In fact, I think I dreamt it the other night that I was home, and I'm like, I gotta buy that light grey Sol yarn by Hillesvåg because I'm running out. The struggle when you can't get all your Norwegian yarn favourites here. I'm sure you can relate. What's slightly more unrealistic is if I can go to Oslo afterwards. Like I said, I'm from Trondheim. It's very far apart. If I could go to Oslo after going to Trondheim and see my friends there, oh, that would be amazing. I doubt I could get around to see everyone, but I would certainly hope to see, you know, 4 of them that I've known for years and years and years. They're my babies, you know. Meanwhile, I will be staying put here in London. Like I said, things are opening up again. My markets are back on. I can move around a bit. Hopefully maybe see some of the people who are still left in this town, which isn't a lot of people that I usually hang out with, but some of them are still here. We're fixing up the patio. We could potentially have people over. I mean, this was unthinkable a couple of months ago. I got like nice plants to show off now. And all I'm hoping now is that IKEA's gonna have patio furniture available in stock soon, because I need it. We have the worst furniture out there. Everything else is nice. So those are my luxury problems. This is tiny violin. No, generally things are on a improving trajectory. I just thought I'd give you some nuggets of hope. If things aren't looking up where you are at the moment right now, I mean, I'm hoping you can see maybe some light at the end of the tunnel, given that we have been in a situation where we were some of the worst countries in Europe to now being one of the best. Things can turn around. That's basically, I could have just said that, I guess, but that's all I have to say for my life stuff in this episode that ended up being longer than I thought it would be. So well done me for being able to talk a lot. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. And thanks for all the congratulations on the last video, by the way. I'm still not up to speed on that, but thank you. Bye.